And joining us today in our book talk segment, great to welcome him, has written a really interesting book. It deals with the matter of trust. It's called The Leap, The Science of Trust and Why It Matters. We're joined today by Ulrich Boser today from, I believe, up in Washington, D.C. Is that right, Ulrich?
That's correct. I'm here speaking to you from Washington.
That's not the most trusting city, is it?
Washington is not the most trusting city, and certainly a lot of the headlines these days seem to be about lack of trust in government, and certainly found that in my book. The trust in government is in fact lower in many areas than we even think.
You're in a good place to do your research then.
Well said.
Well, it really is kind of interesting to and you break it down, we'll talk about that in a minute if you like, about what states are more trusting and which aren't, but what led you to kind of do a book on trust itself? It's a great topic to write a book about.
It is. It's a fascinating topic. I worked here at the Center for American Progress on a project that was about rebuilding trust in government, and it allowed me to become more interested in trust overall. And I became just fascinated with the topic. Did a lot of research and reporting. Went skydiving to see if my trust hormone went up. Went to Rwanda to see how they're rebuilding trust. I wore a little device for a whole weekend to measure my body language, and just really trying to wrap my hand around this key issue that shapes so much. I mean, the bottom line is if you're engaged in any cooperative activity, raising a family or running a nation or having a company, you need to have some form of trust.
It's interesting. You just mentioned it there. I was going to ask you about it, the trust hormone. So actually there's something that goes on in the brain, right, that helps with trusting, right?
Yeah, that's right. There is what people have dubbed this trust hormone, oxytocin, and largely it's used to help women go into labor. But when you give it to people in these types of economic experiments, they're far more trusting of other people. So what we know from that, and what it suggests is we're really built to connect with others, to put our faith with others. We're much more cooperative, I think, than the headlines suggest.
You mentioned before about people having less trust in government, but are people more trusting of each other or less trusting of each other nowadays?
Well, over time, trust in other people, in strangers, really has gone down. And I've seen in my data in some states that almost no one in states like Tennessee reports fully trusting people that they meet for the first time, and that's a problem. And that's a problem at the local level where you want to engage with your neighbors or participate in your church. But it's also a bigger problem as a nation, right? I mean, trust is key to our economy. Research shows that just small increases in our faith in others can boost the GDP.
Yeah, I was told by my parents who grew up during the Depression years. They grew up in New York. I'm from New York, and back in those years, you could leave your doors unlocked and your keys in the car. And people wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
That seems almost hard to believe now, but that was a time where that could happen. I don't know if that can happen again, but why did we lose that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to go back to the social cohesion of the 1950s anytime soon. But look, there have been a number of things that have led to our decreased trust in other people. Some of it is simply economic. The Great Recession and the rise of income inequality has done a lot to ruin, our sense of faith and social cohesion. And education is key. When people go to college, when they graduate from high school, they show a lot more faith in others. So, I can't say that there's one single issue that brought this lack of social eating together, but I think we need to do a lot more to rebuild that sense of community. And some of it might be as simple as going to more community activities like pick-up basketball games or volunteering. But our government also plays a role too in terms of reducing income inequality and helping us come together more broadly.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there. Nothing wrong with being on the internet and all that kind of thing, but I think more people are so isolated on their phones or whatever, communicating that way, you've gotten away from, like you said, just a pickup basketball game or meeting a group of people at church during the week. That hurts, doesn't it, trust? not doing that.
I mean, technology is weird, right? I mean, on one side, there's no doubt. I mean, just walk down the street of any city or town, you see people, texting while they're walking around, and that really does hurt our sense of connections to others. But I think one can also be optimistic about technology and the rise of these new websites, whether it's eBay, where you're now buying and selling things from strangers, or Airbnb, where you're renting out your house to strangers, that show that there are new ways to connect with other people. So technology, it's a double-edged sword, and we need to make sure that we get the best thing out of it.
There's some great stories in the book. Maybe briefly tell it. I know it's kind of a long one, but I found it interesting about a radio soap opera in Rwanda, of all places, that had to do with restoring a country's trust, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I went to Rwanda because I wanted to see, the nation is incredible. There was a genocide there. Hundreds of thousands of people passed away in these terrible killings. And today, it has one of the fastest growing economies in the world. How is that possible? And there are all sorts of bottom-up grassroots types of programs that have been put in place that allow people to, learn a little bit more about how they can re-engage in society, how they can rebuild together. And one is this, radio soap opera where people would learn about, reconciliation, where they would learn about coming together again. Also, so a lot of economic programs that were just really, really important, where they had the two ethnic parties, Hutus and Tutsis, co-owning goats and pigs together as a way to, regain that sense of trust. I mean, one thing that's important to keep in mind is that, what matters often just as much as trust is trustworthiness. Are people honest? Are they dependable? Mm-hmm. And when you engage in those types of partnerships, it can really help a lot.
You mentioned some of the least trusting states. What are some of the most trusting states?
When we look across the data, Maine, New Hampshire, Nebraska, Utah, those are some of the states that, show greater levels of trust in our data. And it makes sense. I mean, those are states that have high levels of social capital, that have long histories where people, look similar, they went to similar churches, and that can help a lot. But when it comes to the United States, right, I mean, what we have to keep in mind is that we're a nation about ideas, about a set of principles, and that means we need this type of bridging capital to trust people who might not look like us, who have different backgrounds of us, and that's going to be key to our future. Yeah,
fascinating topic. It's called The Leap, The Science of Trust and Why It Matters. We've been talking with Ulrich Boser today. Ulrich, you have a specific website you want to give out, or people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, if people are interested in the book, my website has lots of, freebies. If you want to see my scared face as I jumped out of the airplane, we posted some photos up there. But we also have a whole bunch of guides and other extras for folks. A guide around how to increase trust in your teams and neighborhoods is up there. Looking at the 49ers as a metaphor there. And then also a guide for policymakers, right? When we think about rebuilding trust, we really need to focus on government.
This UlrichBoser.com, right? That's the one?
Yes, sir.
Great.
Not so many other Ulrich Bosers out there, so hopefully pretty easy for your listeners to find.
It's a unique name.
Hey, thanks.
Ulrich, thanks for joining us today. Hope we can do it again.
Awesome.